Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and for your interest in the 2026 James Irvine Foundation Leadership Awards. I'm Stacy Williams. I'm a program manager at Capital Impact. We are the external managers of the Leadership Awards program. Today's webinar is designed to help you navigate the nominations process and to understand changes we've made this year, as well as to get answers to your questions. We'll be giving you an overview of the James Irvine Foundation, the awards program, our team, the nominations process, share some tips for completing your nomination, as well as how to use the submissions platform. The last 15 minutes of the webinar are reserved for your questions. If you have questions during the presentation, please look for the Q&A tool at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll either address them in real time or at the end of the webinar. The speakers on the webinar today will be myself and my colleagues from Capital Impact, Melissa Granville and Sarah Dillon. Cindy Downing, Program Officer for the James Irvine Foundation, is also here. She oversees the leadership awards at the foundation and will offer input where necessary. Let's get started. To begin, I'll briefly share a bit about the history of the James Irvine Foundation with you. As a private foundation, Irvine has pursued its mission to expand opportunities for the people of California since its start in 1937. Irvine's grant making is focused on a California where all low-income workers have the power to advance economically and have a stated commitment to racial equity in Irvine's investments. In 2024 alone, the foundation approved over $159 million in grants to over 225 organizations. Irvine's committed to championing fairness and equity for all California workers. And we are delighted that the Leadership Awards program continues to flourish. The program plays an important role in lifting up critical work and innovation models of leaders, regardless of issue area, population, sector, or region. The program not only celebrates leaders, but also provides us a way to learn about and support work that directly affects the well-being of low-income Californians outside of Irvine's core grant making. Each year, the Leadership Awards program recognizes individuals who are confronting the state's critical challenges with innovative and effective solutions that improve people's lives and contribute to a better California. Irvine spotlights these leaders, helps share their approaches with policymakers and peers, and provides each of their organizations with a $350,000 grant and additional resources to support each leader's work. Since 2006, Irvine has recognized 130 diverse and innovative California leaders. There are a number of benefits for recipients of the Leadership Award. Firstly, each recipient's organization receives a one-time non-renewable grant of $350,000. But beyond that, recipients benefit from the public recognition, connections to policymakers and other stakeholders, as well as capacity building and networking opportunities. Past recipients have reported a range of other benefits for themselves and their organizations after receiving a leadership award, such as boosting their credibility and helping to position them as experts in their field, as well as inspiring staff and creating a stronger sense of commitment to their shared goals. The Leadership Awards team is comprised of dedicated folks from both the James Irvine Foundation, that's Don Howard, Charles Sidney Fields, and Cindy Downing, and Capital Impact. Again, we're the external managers of the Leadership Awards program. I would like now to introduce Melissa Granville, who is a partner at Capital Impact. Melissa will provide an overview of the nominations process and timeline, as well as tips for submitting a competitive nomination. Thank you all for your attention. Melissa, over to you.
Thanks, Stacy. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. As Stacy mentioned, my name is Melissa Granville, and I've been working with the Leadership Awards program since 2018. Feels like just yesterday, but also a long time ago. I've been a nominations reviewer in the early stages of the nominations process before they got to the selection committee. And whether you've already accepted your nomination or are still deciding, this webinar is designed to help you understand kind of what comes next and how you can put your best foot forward in submitting a competitive, detailed nominee submission. So you've already cleared an important milestone by being nominated. That in and of itself is recognition of the incredible work you're doing across California. So I just want to say congratulations. And today I'll walk through what's required in the next stage and offer tips for how to make your detailed submission as compelling as possible. So just a quick reminder, I want to share that we have made a slight change in the nominations process this year to move to a two-step nominations process. So in the past, nominators completed a full in-depth submission on behalf of the nominee. And we heard clearly that while people were eager to shine a light on great leaders, the time and effort required, sometimes, 8 to 10 hours, sometimes more, created barriers to participation. So this year we split the process into two parts. Step one is a short initial nomination form submitted by a nominator or the nominee themselves as a self-nomination. And step two is a more detailed submission completed by the nominee if they choose to accept the nomination. So we made this change for a few key reasons. One is to reduce the burden on nominators. Two is to increase accessibility and inclusion by opening the door to more leaders across California. And three was to empower nominees to tell their own story and in their own voice and with the detail and kind of depth only that nominees can provide. Ideally, nominees can use language that they've already used in other grant proposals to kind of support their detailed submission. So where are we in the process? We are now, we've now, sorry, next slide, please. We've now completed the first stage of the nominations process. So all nominations, whether submitted by someone else or self-nominated, were due on March 12th. If you were nominated or submitted a self-nomination by that deadline, you're eligible to move forward in the process. If not, unfortunately, you are not eligible for an award this year. For those of you who were nominated, you should have received an email invitation to accept or decline your nomination. If you've already accepted, great. You're ready to begin step two, the detailed nominee submission. If you're still considering whether to move forward, that's completely okay. My goal today is to give you the information and clarity you need to make that decision. And if you do choose to continue, how to submit the strongest possible submission. Next slide. So how does it work? Great, so you've been nominated. What's next? Between now and April 30th, actually, can you go back one slide? Between now and April 30th, you'll complete a more in-depth submission in the submittable platform that gives you a fuller understanding of your leadership, your work, and your impact. The questions are designed to bring your story to life and to reflect how your work aligns with the 6 core selection criteria, which I'll share more about in a minute. If you're a returning nominee or were involved in the process last year, you'll find that the questions look familiar, and that's because they are. The only difference from last year's process is that we're asking the nominee themselves to complete them instead of the nominator or external validator. And if you nominated yourself, you'll complete the same questions in submittable as someone who was nominated. Just log into the account you've already set up and get started. My colleague Sarah will walk through some tips and tricks for how to use the submittable platform a little later. Next slide. For those who self-nominated, one of the key elements of your submission is input from a validator, someone who knows your work and can speak to your work that's outside of yourself and your organization. Your validator will receive a short form with the same reflection questions used in step 1. It's important to follow up with the validator and ensure they complete their form by April 30th. Otherwise, your submission won't be complete. Remember, only one validator's submission is required, and if the primary validator doesn't complete it, the secondary validator will be contacted. So as a reminder, if you self-nominated, you already listed who your primary and secondary validators are, and they've already been contacted, or at least the first person has been contacted. You'll also be able to track the status of your validator's submission and send reminders all within the submittable platform. My colleague Sarah will share a bit more on how to do that in the portal. Next slide. Okay, so for clarity, I just wanted to walk through a visual representation of the timeline for the nominations process this year. Again, nominations are closed as of March 12th. On March 14th, all nominees were notified and invited to start their nomination. Nominees have until April 30th to complete their detailed submission. And if you submitted your own name for consideration, a self-nomination, your validator has already been notified via submittal. And if we do not hear from that primary validator, we will contact your secondary validator on April 15th, 2025. So all of the validator submission must be done on April 30th along with your detailed submission. Great. Next slide. So let's talk about the selection committee and the selection timeline. So each year, an independent selection committee of California leaders identifies 4 to 6 recipients of the James Irvine Foundation Leadership Awards. These leaders, who you see here on the screen, are distinguished for their extensive contributions to California communities and institutions. They work in diverse fields and reflect the ethnic and regional diversity of California. These folks their names and bios are available on the website if you're curious to learn more about them. So what will they consider? The Leadership Boards team, including the selection committee, will consider all substantive information in both parts of the nomination. So this includes your nominators' details and responses and your responses to the narrative questions. The team will also consider demographic information about the leaders. In the case of self-nominations, the team will also review the responses provided by one validator as identified by the nominee. Next slide. So what's the process for selecting these leaders? So after the deadline of April 30th, staff will review and advance the nominations that are most aligned with the selection criteria, the awards criteria. In late July or early August, the selection committee will select 10 to 12 finalists who are then notified. In August, once the finalists have been contacted, all nominees and nominators will be notified about the status of their nomination. Between August and October, the Leadership Boards team and an expert in the finalist field of work will meet with the finalists individually to better understand their work and its impact on California. The selection committee will meet again in late October or early November to review the learnings from these meetings and select the 4 to 6 award recipients. So all finalists and recipients will be notified shortly after that second meeting of the selection committee. And we anticipate announcing all of the award recipients, all 4 to 6 award recipients, in February of 2026. And as Stacy mentioned, the foundation spotlights these leaders and helps share their approaches with policymakers and others through a reception in Sacramento, meetings with policymakers and other opportunities. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about eligibility and selection criteria for the leadership boards. So first, it's important to ensure that you're eligible for a leadership board. So to be eligible, nominees must be living. reside in California. They can work in any sector, so nonprofit, public, private. They can work in any field. We also have a couple of other considerations. One, that the nominee doesn't plan to retire or leave their role within 1 year of the award announcement. So they should expect to remain in their position through at least February of 2027. That's really because this award, it gives the leader the ability to actually leverage the award for their professional and work goals. There are also a couple of important notes. So current or recent grantees of the James Irvine Foundation may or may not be eligible. Kind of depends on the details. If that's your situation, I strongly encourage you to check out the FAQ page on our website for clarification. And if you're unsure about any of these eligibility criteria, we've made it easy for you. There's a short eligibility quiz on our website at irvineawards.org. My colleague Tamara just will put this in the chat. It only takes a few minutes and you can confirm pretty quickly whether you're eligible for the award. Next slide. Now that we've covered eligibility, let's talk about the selection criteria. This is what the selection committee is looking for when they're reviewing detailed submissions. So there are 6 core selection criteria, and they serve as the foundation for how your nomination will be evaluated. I'll go into a few of them in detail a bit later. But for now, I'll do a quick overview to keep for you to keep in mind as you begin preparing your responses. So the first criterion is significance. So are you working on an issue that's critical to California, one that affects the quality of life of a large number of people or a community that's been historically overlooked? The second is innovation. So does your work reflect a new approach or a unique solution? And maybe you're doing something no one else is doing, or applying a proven model in a new context or community. Effectiveness. Can you demonstrate that your work is making a real difference? We're looking for clear signs of impact, whether that's data, stories, outcomes, or systems change markers. Fourth is inclusiveness. Are you building bridges, working across differences, or creating opportunities for underserved communities? How do your values show up in your leadership and your work? Fifth is timing. Is this moment, the environment, an opportunity for your work to grow, influence others, or inform policy? We're especially interested in efforts that are ready to scale or be replicated. And lastly, leadership capacity. Are you ready to take the next step in your work? Are you positioned to expand your impact, lead broader change, or bring your approach to new spaces? So these criteria are at the heart of how nominees are assessed. So as you prepare your detailed submission or think about whether to move forward, we hope you keep them in mind. And I'll say that strong submissions clearly speak to these areas and provide examples or evidence to back up your claims. Next slide. Okay, so one of the most common questions we get is what makes a nomination competitive? We can't speak to individual nominations, and to ensure fairness, we're not able to give feedback on specific nominees, but we can absolutely share what we've seen in strong, successful submissions. So here are a few big picture insights to keep in mind. In general, nominees with a track record of impact at their current organization, usually at least 2 to 3 years, tend to be more competitive. Likewise, the work or project that is being highlighted should have measurable results or a clear story of progress. And if a project is still in the early stages or hasn't yet launched yet, it's less likely to be competitive this year. We also recommend considering the broader pool of recent recipients. If your work is in the same general field as a recent awardee, say an immigrant or refugee serving organization based in San Diego, that would not be as competitive because it's extremely similar in both issue area and geography to a recent recipient. However, if it's general or like if you work in education or public health more generally, that's totally fine. The most important tip I can give you is this. Your best shot at being competitive is to clearly show how your work aligns with the six selection criteria. So let's take a deeper look at a few very specific criteria. Once you've accepted your let's take a quick look at specific criteria. So significance. Here, describe the problem you're working to solve and why it matters to California. So one tip is to be specific about the community or population affected and try to include some estimate of scale. How many people are impacted now or could be in the future? Another area that is important is how you're describing innovation. So help us understand what makes your work different. Are you applying a new approach, reviving a traditional one that isn't widely known, or bringing a proven model to a new context? Think about whether your work could serve as a model for others in California or beyond. There's two other that I'll bring your attention to. One is effectiveness. So this is where we look for results. How have you made real measurable change? Strong submissions often include evaluation data, surveys or case studies, policy wins, other data that reach can sometimes be helpful. You can also include anecdotes or stories of impact, especially if they show the real life effect of your work on people or communities. Emotional or cultural impact is also helpful and powerful, such as art or storytelling, such as through art or storytelling. One note, internal metrics like staffing, growth, or budget size are less persuasive on their own unless they directly support your programmatic goals. In addition to scoring based on criteria, we also provide a holistic review score that takes into account several components. One is diversity of experience, so including region, lived experience, ethnic backgrounds, and fields. We also look at kind of opportunity and timing. Is this a moment where recognition could amplify their work? We look at potential for scale or replication. So is the model ready to grow or influence broader systems? And lastly, visibility and reach. So would a leadership award help open doors for not just the individual, but the organization or work, help create new partnerships, or bring attention to the work in some way? So we want the finalist pool to reflect the full diversity of California across regions, sectors, backgrounds, and issues, and that it includes leaders who are poised to leverage this platform in really meaningful ways. I have a few other tips as well. So once you've accepted your nomination, you'll complete a more detailed submission through Submittable. And a few just quick tips is just to focus on the criteria. So every nomination is reviewed and scored based on how well it addresses the 6 criteria. We encourage you to follow the prompts. So make sure you respond to the actual questions asked in the nominations form. My colleague is going to put in the chat the questions that are on the nominations form. It'll include the prompts as well. And we also encourage you to use the space that you're given. So we have word and character limits, and just use them strategically to share what matters most in that section. And lastly, we encourage you to be clear about scope. So you can focus on your full body of work, or you can highlight a specific project or model. If you're focusing on one initiative, be sure to briefly describe your broader context, but spend most of your energy on the model itself. Okay, that's a lot of information. I definitely want to leave time to talk about submittable, so I will pass it over to my colleague, Sarah Dillon, who will walk us through the submittable process.
Thank you, Melissa. And hello, everyone. All right, so we have two different processes that we're going to talk about today. For those of you who are nominated by someone else on our website, and then for those of you who started a self-nomination in Submittable. So I'm going to start with those who were nominated by someone else. So your nominator filled out a form on our website, and then that triggered you to get this email on March 14th. There was a question in the chat. If you didn't get it or if it was forwarded to you, we can resend it to you. So just give us, shoot us an email and we can resend that to you. This email included these options to accept or decline, and at the bottom of the email, it had a copy of your nomination and what your nominator wrote about you. So clicking these buttons, if you say, yes, I accept, that will take you to Submittable, and no, if you decline, it takes you to a survey just for help for our learning. And clicking, yes, I accept, that doesn't, you still need to submit your submission, the nominee submission, and that is ultimately what will move your nomination forward. So as long as you submit that the form in Submittable, that's what's going to move you forward. So you don't have to worry about like if you clicked this button or not. And then similarly, if you click it but you don't finish that submission in Submittable, you will not move forward. So the form in Submittable is what's most important versus the buttons in this email. You can go to next slide. So once you click that button, you'll be taken here to Submittable, and you'll be asked to create an account or log in. If you happen to submit a nomination last year, you can log in and you should be able to see your nomination from last year as well. Or you can create an account with your email address. Next slide. Okay, so here's what it looks like once you log in. You'll see the form. Two things to note at the very top of the form on the right is that Manage Collaborators button. Some folks have asked about supporting someone who is nominated or, helping them write their nomination or their submission. And you can do that with that Manage Collaborators button. Whoever starts the account is the one who will submit it, and then they will receive the follow-up communications from Submittable. We'll be following up with people within the Submittable platform. So whoever starts the process, just know that that's the only person that Submittable will send notifications to, but you can add these collaborators who can log in and help edit or write text. And you can also collaborate offline, of course, as well. And then the nomination title, we have a suggested format, just so you all know. This doesn't impact your nomination at all. This won't be shared publicly. This is just how you and we will see your nomination in the back end. So we have that suggested format, which just helps kind of us all keep it organized. Okay, next slide. At the top of your nomination, you'll be asked if you're nominated multiple times. The way that you'll know is if you got multiple emails on March 14th. So they would have all looked like that email I showed at the beginning of this section. You would have gotten more than one, but then when you scroll down to the portion where it says your nomination, there would have been different nominations there. There's just a handful of you who were nominated multiple times. And so you can look for multiple emails there, and then you are only able to proceed with one nomination. So if you weren't nominated multiple times, don't worry, that doesn't make anyone more competitive for a nomination because only one will advance. So if you were, you can just read them and you can choose which one you think is the strongest or most aligned with the selection criteria or best represent you. And then you tell us the name of the nominator who wrote the nomination you would like to proceed with, and you put that there. Next slide. Once you're in your Submittable homepage, either before or after you submit, it will look like this. After you submit, you'll see your submission there at the bottom, that one that says 2026 Stacey Williams. That's one that she had submitted. And then you see up at the tabs in the menu, there's My Submissions. That's where you'll see ones already submitted. And then if you click to the right, you'll see Drafts. So if you have one that hasn't been submitted that you're currently working on, you can find it there in Drafts. And Submittable saves as you go. So once you start working on one, it'll be there in Drafts for you. Okay. And then to view the details of a submission that we're going to show you in the next slide, you would click the title of the submission. So click that 2026 Stacey Williams, that's a clickable link, and then we'll open up more information about your submission. Next slide. So here's what it looks like once you click that link. The activity tab is just a summary of everything that you'll see about your nomination, including the messages and any correspondence from us. The messages tab will show you anything that you send us or that we sent you. We're mostly just sending like confirmations and next steps in that, and they'll also go to your email submittable. We'll send you an email saying that you received them, but if you're wondering if you missed something, it'll show up in there. Okay, and next slide, if we go to the messages, there's also where you can send a message to us. I believe that only will show up after you submit. So before you submit or at any time, you can also just send us a direct email to hello@irvineawards.org. And then next slide. Yes, next slide, which is the next tab. If you click on the Forms tab, you'll see these different forms. Here, for people who have been nominated by someone else, the initial form is what we were talking about, the step 2 of the process. Your nominee submission will show up there. There's these other things that say like no form submitted. Those are just placeholders from submittable, so don't worry about those. We're not requiring any of those from you. So the only thing for people who are nominated by someone else is filling out this initial form. And then next slide. Okay, so that was for people who are nominated from someone else. Those of you who started a self-nomination, you got a slightly different email on March 14th, was inviting you to continue in the submittable process. And then you also got a specific notification from submittable saying that you had been asked to complete another form. So you would have gotten both of those emails. And then when you go to submittable, next slide. Similar thing on the back end, when you click on your submission, you'll see these forms, and then this one's a little bit different. For people who self-nominated, the initial form is what you already filled out for step 1, and then the additional form is your step 2. So the additional form is what we're asking you to work on now and submit by April 30th. And then in step 1, if you look to the right of that line, there's 2 circles on a little arrow. If you click that arrow, it will expand and show you the full form that you already submitted. And if you scroll down on that form, if you go to next slide, at the end of that form was your validator information. And you can see that the validator request was sent when you submitted the form, and it will show you there whether or not the validator has responded. So if the validator responded, it will say so. And then for this example, I asked myself to validate and I haven't submitted yet. And then you can click that link to say resend request, and it will send another follow-up request to your validator. So you can check on if your validator has done that and then follow up. And it's really important. Submittable does not allow us to do this for you. So only you can access that resend request button. So that's really helpful, and we recommend, like Melissa said, talk with your validator, let them know it's coming, and then you can do that there. And then we can see on our end whether or not they've submitted, and so that's how on April 15th, we'll be able to say who hasn't submitted, and we'll invite your second validator to submit a form, but that will take place outside of the submittable. So you won't see the second validator form in here, the alternate validator, but we will still send you an email confirmation when one of your validators submits. Okay. That's all for me on technology.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. The rest of this time is really an opportunity for you to ask questions. So as a reminder, you can put them in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll address some of them live. I did answer a few in writing, so feel free to look at the answered section for those, and then I'll answer a few live. So one of the questions we got was the nominations form questions and whether they were the same or different from what the nominator submitted. So they are different. So the nominator as well as the validators are asked just 3 narrative questions, like what about the leader inspires them, about the nominee inspires them, what kind of impact are they having? So they're just 3 short questions and a little bit of information about the nominator themselves. Yeah. Okay. So different questions. The whole role of, just to clarify, the role of the validator or the nominator is that they're providing an external kind of story, their observations of your impact and who you are as a leader to support your detailed submission. Okay. So one of the questions was, are people who hold emeritus positions eligible for these awards? It kind of depends. So we've had board members in the past be nominated, and the key is that the leader who is nominated, or the nominee, that they will have agency or decision-making authority in the direction of the work that's described in the nomination. So it largely depends on kind of their involvement in the organization, but it is not intended to be an award for it's not really a lifetime achievement award or a look back at the full breadth of someone's professional history, but more about an opportunity to elevate leadership and to accelerate the work that they're doing, but by providing funding and also additional supports. Great. Okay. What if I plan to leave soon? Or what if I don't plan to leave, but there might be a departure within a year based on funding or other environmental factors? So the short answer is, we don't know the future, right? So would encourage you to consider a nomination or completing your nomination because it could support you staying in that position. And also many award recipients in the past have used the funding for their own professional development. They've used it for sabbaticals. They've used it for other purposes as well. Of course, to like sustain their work and provide operational funding. But yeah, I mean, I think that's up to you to decide, but I encourage you to, $350,000 is a great opportunity to kind of help provide some sustainable funding.
There's a question about pairs being nominated, which is a great thing I didn't speak to in the tech. But that would be a great use of that collaborate button at the beginning of the nomination. If you both proceed as a pair, then just choose one person to start the submittable account, and then you could add the other person as a collaborator, and you would turn in one form for both of you.
There. Okay, I have a question about innovation and the kind of rub with impact. So if we have a new innovative strategy and it seems that you are looking for a new innovative strategies, how would we show impact if it's new? Would we simply show impact in other areas? Anything that's brand new, if there is if the organization has existing evidence of impact that is related to this new innovation, that would be something that you could provide. Ideally, the model will have a couple of years of impact, 2 to 3 years. Those are the most competitive, but that isn't to say that a new idea couldn't be seeded by the Leadership Awards funding that's based on something that you're already doing organizationally. Right. We had a question about controversial work. So controversial work is, I think we'd have to define controversial, but we've supported the James Irvine Foundation Leadership Awards have elevated a lot of solutions that have rubbed up against things that might be perceived as controversial. That doesn't necessarily hurt your chances for this award. The key is to focus on the selection criteria. And if your work is aligned with the selection criteria, you should put it forth for consideration. So I did answer this question. It's mostly about impact data as well. You can certainly talk about impact of past projects if it's important for the current one or the current model, anything that kind of supports your organizational or the case for that current project as well, or the new innovative project. All right. We got a couple questions about the number of nominees we received. So we received over 600 nominations. And, it's important to note that nominations don't, it is only eligible if people accept their nomination and submit the full detailed submission. So we don't actually know how many total completed nominations there will be. But we did receive more than 600 kind of initial short form nominations, and hopefully you'll accept and move forward and complete your full detailed submission. So we have a solid pool. So someone was asking about the prior awarded organizations and leaders. There is a page on the Leadership Board's website that lists all of the past recipients by area, geographic region, and which year they received the award. I would highly recommend just taking a look at the recent recipients, recent being the last 1 to 2 years, just to get a sense of what might be more or less competitive. Okay. So one of the questions was, is the reputation or status of the nominator weighed in the selection of the nominees, or is this solely based on the impact of the work for the person being nominated? The bulk of our review is spent on your detailed nominee submission, and we look at the content submitted by the nominator to support that submission. So this is arguably it's the most content filled, gives us more information about the impact of the work. So that is the most important part of the total complete nomination. If you're having any technical issues related to the submittable platform or having access to your nomination, please contact us at hello@irvineawards.org. We can put this in the chat as well, so we can get you all set up. Great question, Pamela. Validators are only required for self-nominations. For those who were nominated, the initial nomination is your validator. So you just need to submit your detailed submission, and then that is a complete nomination. Great. Someone asked if there's reporting requirements related to the award funds. Yes, but they're very minimal. We work with the organizations to make it as flexible as possible. Yeah, great question. One of the questions is it okay to write about our nonprofit agency or one specific program? Both are okay. It just depends on your organization and what makes sense for you. We've had pretty large entities that, UC San Diego, be nominated, but it was for a very particular project within their kind of big department, right? So it just kind of depends. There's also organizations that focus primarily on one mission. where it might make more sense for, it could be the whole organization, or there could be a very particular program that feels more aligned with the selection criteria to put forward. All of those options are like totally normal and welcome. Okay, David asks, is there an easy way to copy all the prompts on the submittable form so the responses can be worked offline, and then be cut and paste into the submittal? This is actually something I would highly recommend. You can also work in the submittable platform. It saves as you go, but the questions we put into the chat, you're more than welcome to download that and start writing your responses in that document and then copying and pasting it into the submittable platform. Yeah. Great. One question is, are letters of recommendation required? They are not. That is the role of the validator. So unless you're a self-nominator, you do not need to worry about that. One question was, is the nominator, the information shared by the nominator considered in the evaluation? It is considered alongside the submittable answers that you submit. It's a supporting piece of information. One question is, are there areas of service that Irvine is not likely to fund? This award is issue agnostic, so it really could be in any issue area. So we're open to learning about all the innovative solutions that are happening in different issues and with different populations all across the state. So no, I highly encourage you to consider a submission.
There's another question that I wanted to touch on with including links to podcasts, panels, videos, etc. Great question, because Submittable does have the option to link text in those text boxes. But we will not, people reviewing the nominations will not be clicking links or looking at anything other than the text submitted in the form. So you're welcome to use all the other formatting options in there, use those options to create bullets and underline information in the text, but yeah, do not link anything externally. It will not be reviewed.
Thanks, Sarah. So one question is, if you were self-nominated and someone nominated you, is it one application to fill out, or are they different? It's the same. They're the same questions. So just fill it out once, and you can choose whether you would like another validator, or if you want to kind of keep the one that was nominated for you. So just indicate for us what you'd like to do. So one question was, thank you for the opportunity. Can you speak to the selection committee? Is it internal? Is the committee public information? The committee is public. It is on the, or like who is on the committee and what their background is available on the Irvine Awards website. The deliberations are not public information. However, deliberations are always based on the selection criteria and all the things we kind of talked about today. We are very transparent about like what we've seen over the years to be successful nominations or competitive nominations based on selection committee feedback. So everything that we've shared with you today has come directly from the selection committee meetings, but they are not public. But thanks, good question. This is a good question. So the person who nominated me wrote an amazing summary of our work. Can I use her language in the application, or is that discouraged? Since I'm glad it's amazing, and I hope you use it in future grant proposals. Given that you only have so much room for your own submission, I'd encourage you to kind of write something else, only because it would be redundant, because we're going to be reviewing both the nominator submission alongside the detailed nominee submission. Okay.
There's a question there, Melissa, about the grant, the government funding restriction on the grant. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it looks like we have a couple of questions related to it. So I'll answer this in a couple of ways, since I see a couple of questions about like who's able to receive the funds, and then also how they can be used. Just as a reminder, anybody can be nominated for this award, and anyone can receive this award. So for-profit entities, or leaders of for-profit entities, leaders of nonprofits, public sector. We will work with your organization to direct the funds to the most appropriate organization, so you can maximize those funds for your work. Or part of the original kind of setup of the James Irvine Foundation was that funds cannot be used to, they can be used to supplement but not supplant government funding. We have to direct funds to, if your organization receives more than 50% funding, we have to direct the funds to a project that isn't like over 50% funded by government funding. But again, we will work with you to make this happen if you do receive this award. We have not had any problems yet on kind of making sure that those funds get to the leaders who need it most. Okay. So a couple questions about who were selected or who will advance to round two. We have broken these up into 2 steps, but we have not reviewed any nominator submissions at this point. We will review all materials that come in after the after this first round, so after April 30th. So there hasn't been any sort of elimination or culling or review at this point to minimize or lower the pool at this point. So we received over 600. We'll see how many folks complete submissions, and then we'll review from there. Ultimately, the next round will be to cull them down to the finalists, so 10 to 12 finalists later this year. Couple more questions about reporting. Very minimal reporting. It's generally the funds are general operating support. We do, on rare occasions, offer different grant types depending on the organization structure. For example, if you receive more than 50% government funding, we would direct this to a project, but generally we want whoever receives this award to have very flexible funding opportunity with general operating support. Okay.
The question about if the profiles on the website have are the text from their submission. No, that's something that we create with recipients after their selection. So we don't make public former nominations or nominee submissions. But you can see from those, that's us demonstrating how those recipients align with some of the selection criteria. So you could still use that as information about how to represent some of your work, but that's not meant to be an exact submission like model.
Thanks, Sarah.
Melissa, we are bumping up against time, so if you'd like to select maybe one more.
We had a question about just expanding on the early stage project component. So a program that is early stage that does not have evidence of impact. So early stage meaning has not started yet. That would be less competitive than one that has maybe 1 to 2 years of data kind of supported or behind it. Let's say you're an organization that's been operating for 20 years and you are launching a new program. That could be competitive if it's somewhat similar to your core mission and you have solid evidence of impact of your broader mission. And this is just a kind of arm of that. If it's something entirely new and very different than work that you've done in the past, having a couple years of data would be more competitive for that particular program if it was very distinct from other work that your organization is doing. I hope that helps. Okay, I am going to answer one more question. Actually, I'll just conclude. We will make sure to draft answers to these questions that we may or may not have gotten to. Please, 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 highly encourage you to take a look at our FAQ page on the website. There is a section specific to nominees and validators that would be really helpful to you, just to go through those questions and make sure that this is a good fit for you. Obviously, we really hope that you choose to accept your nomination and move forward with a detailed submission. We do really want to learn about great leaders across the state, especially those who maybe have never heard about this award in the first place and about the incredible work that you're doing. What our whole goal for this program is to elevate these innovative and effective works that are happening across the state and the leaders behind them, and to help them scale, replicate their work, make a deeper impact in some way, and to inform policy. So really hope you consider moving forward and looking forward to kind of reading more about your important work. So I'll stop there. We're going to do a quick poll before you leave, just to get some quick feedback from you.
Thanks, Melissa. So your feedback is critical. Please consider taking this 2-question poll briefly before you leave. Thank you.